Well, there you are again. Charlie Greer Podcast. I do this every day today. So, our store in St. Louis in the 90s. That's when I worked. Anyway, before we do, please like, share, and subscribe. If you want to support the channel, the information's in the description for Cash App. My handle is Charlie Greer Podcast. And for Zelle, it's my email, which is in the description. So, our antique store in St. Louis. Now, I worked there in the 90s. My grandfather started it in 1947, I think. And it first started out in the on Broad in St. Louis, Broadway. Then he moved it to, when he first got his first building, was in the Central West End. And I'd visit that as a kid. And then in the 70s or 80s, he moved it to Dutchtown, which is in like the south side of St. Louis. And we were there from like the 70s till the store closed in like 98. And so around 94, I was living in Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, college town. Back then it was cool. There's a lot of bands, even for a smaller town, a lot of great bands. I was in a band. But we were like at the tail end of our, it's strange because we were at the kind of the peak of our popularity, but like the tail end of trying to keep it together. We had drummers quit and this and that. People have getting jobs and, so it's basically like two of us left. I mean, three kind of, but, and then that one, he wanted to move besides me. And I was, it's time to put a fork in it. And I was doing some of the songs I was submitting to the band, like, hey, go to band practice. They didn't like. So I was like, well, maybe I should start another band. And around this time, I got a call from my mother. It's like, hey, your grandfather's sick. He wants you to move to St. Louis to help out with the store. I was like, I don't know. I was like, we can get you an apartment. There's an apartment like, a couple blocks away. Leave like this weekend. Just come on down. By the time you get here, we'll have it furnished for you. I was like, really? Okay. Because at the time I was living in a band house. It was like me, an ex-band member of mine, and then another ex-band member, like two of us upstairs and one guy downstairs. And like multiple bands rehearsed there. My band didn't because we had another band house, but I didn't live. Only one of us lived in the band house. Kind of a party house where I lived. There'd be parties. It was cool. We had fun. So I was like, hey, yeah, I'm moving. Yeah, no, you're not. You'll be back. So I packed my stuff in my, at the time I had what did I have? I don't even know what I was driving. I packed it up. Got to St. Louis. And sure enough, I pull it to the store and my mom's like, yeah, the crew are literally like putting the last stuff in your house. Beds, couches, TVs, even a stereo system, like all the, pots and pans, like a microwave. Because our store, part of it was antiques, and the other part was not a thrift, but we pulled out estates. We bought whole estates. So we had everything you think of: bed sheets and mattresses and clothing and books. And I mean, like literally. So they're like, hey, we'll go over there. Tell me how to get there. I pull up. The guys are getting done. I'd met them over the years, but our crew guys, Big Bill, Irish Tom. And like, hey, you're here. Huh? Went to the apartment. I was shocked. Like, oh my God, they put all this cool stuff in there, ready to go. Like, here's the keys. I couldn't say, like, get back to work. We had to come to the store. So I locked it up and got back to the store. And so our store was open. We were only closed on Sundays. And it was like, I think we're open like 9 to 6 or something like that, Monday through Saturday. Because I work 6 days a week. And I had to learn a lot. But it was fascinating when everything you can think of that people own, we had in the store. Granted, this stuff's going in and out, it's being sold, this, that, and the other. And then we might do an estate sale, meaning someone passed away, their kids or whoever, their relatives, they take what they want, and that's what's left. We will do an estate sale, or we'll do what's called a pull out. We buy everything, pull it out, take it to the store, arrange it, price it. Or sometimes if it was, reasonable, we might buy the whole property. Say if it was like You could get it. It was just back taxes they owed. We could pay the back taxes. If they didn't have anybody, like any relatives. So that happened. Yeah, that happened as well. Probably about 5 times a year, we'd get like a little 2-bedroom house and we'd flip it. Cars, you name it. Anything that, again, it was fascinating to see all this stuff, what people collect, and these collectors and these appraisers. And again, I'm dealing with like probate lawyers and accountants and all this other thing. And not too much. I mean, my grandfather was still there for a while before he passed, and my mom took over, and she would take care of all the most of the business. But sometimes I would have to. But it was I really miss, like, I know it sounds kind of crazy, but you get an estate. My mom and the crew would go and walk through and see if they're going to make a bid. I'd run the store, and then if we got it, we'd have to go and do the walkthrough, get it set up if we're going to pull it or estate. Most time we'd pull it, and a lot of stuff you just don't get to see. And then you would hire people to help us pull the estate. We had like part-timers or whatever. But you get stuff back to the store and you're unboxing, you're getting the boxes. I got, and again, I had kind of the run of the thing. I mean, I couldn't take everything, but I like clothing and collectible knives and, man, you name it, jewelry, and this, that, and the other. It's like, again, I couldn't take a little bit. I would be like, hey, and I learned so much. People have the darndest stuff in their houses. Remember, we pulled this one estate. The guy used to be like a cop, and he was older. So, and he had kept it. It's one of those, you plug into your cigarette lighters, and it's a light, a siren light. And he literally had magnets on the bottom. And he would like just literally like throw it outside his cop car. And, we had that. Like, we had all kinds of Beatles records and this, that, and the other, and like expensive everything. It was amazing. And then eventually my apartment, I started collecting these things, like any artwork and posters, and I was into the music and like art and of course that kind of stuff, and cars. I'd get cars as well. So I started get, hey, can I have that? Yeah. So I had the coolest apartment. Like I had this mannequin. It was a vintage older mannequin that was made out of wood. It was a wooden mannequin. And it looked awesome. And it had a stand, she sat on a stand, and I put her in like the coolest 60s outfit. She wore a Digits shirt, the band The Digits. I had her in a Digits shirt. I wrapped her in like Christmas lights, and she was in the corner of my apartment for like 4 years. My niece was scared of the mannequin. My dog kind of had to get used to it too. She was like growling. But I've get to see a mannequin that nice, in that, like, again, it was wood, like carved, like heavier, But yeah, I had her in like a mini skirt and these weird, they look like almost like rain boots, Digits t-shirt. It was awesome. And then I knew everywhere, all the pawn shops, all the music stores, and that's what I would do on my off time. I would go around, hit the pawn shops. I had the coolest gear, vintage Ampeg amps. I used to, during the period in the 90s for a while, I used a Ampeg bass amp. It was a combo. I forgot the name of it. It had a 15 in it, but I had really good low bottom end, top, a lot of headroom. But I also had a Marshall stack. But in fact, I had a Marshall stack in the store. I just had it in the back area. And after work, I would play the Marshall stack. But yeah, I had an Ampeg. I've had all different pedals. I had Rat, and I had a Mesa Boogie V twin pedal. But that Marshall stack that was in the store after work, and I was trying to get a band together. I was still in Love Engineer for that first year, so I really wasn't doing much. I'd have to go back to Champaign-Urbana and meet the band at the band house, and we'd go here, there, wherever, Chicago, Detroit, Milwaukee, Terre Haute, Indiana, Springfield, Illinois, wherever we were going. We're playing all around. Then when I was I'd get there after work. I would set up I had a 100-watt JCM 800 head and a 412. Then from the Love Engineer, I brought back like a PA system. It was really cool. It was actually a tube PA. One of these there's like a metal. I only had 2 channels, but it was powered, and I plug it into I had a big speaker, had like a horn with 215s, and I literally would like crank that. I mean, it was so loud. I would see people. I'd turn around and there'd be, because we had a glass window up front. There'd be like people walk by, like stand, like looking. And I would crank that Marshall. Literally, we had these lights that like hung. It'd be so loud you'd see them swinging. Just blister, Again, nobody's around. We own the building. Everybody's gone from their building. No one's really around. Just crank that thing. Well, actually, the video store next door, they kind of complain, like, hey man, after you're kind of, we can hear you, sounds like thunder. And I did start having rehearsals there when I was trying to put a band together. Pardon me. And when I did my movie, I made a movie. I did the auditions there. We had 2 cats that lived in the store. That they lived there. They'd been there forever. Matter of fact, one of them, they'd done 2 articles in like the Riverfront Times about this cat. And yeah, very cool. We had the upstairs, two sides of the upstairs, and then the downstairs that was open to the public. And then on the other side of the upstairs, there was actually a private basement that was kind of nasty. We stored stuff down there. Sometimes I would jam down there. I forget why I would use that. Maybe because it was soundproof. It was underground, and there was more room. So sometimes I would jam down there, but it was just kind of eerie and yeah, I didn't like being down there. But we had like a dedicated tool room, like because we used to have a guy that used to like fix stuff, and while my grandfather's around, and we actually had an elevator, like a industrial elevator. By the time I got there, we just like disconnected it. We didn't want to deal with it. But yeah, good times, because you would get there, open the store. All the neighborhood at the time, there was all these businesses around. There was 3 or 4 other antique stores kind of piggybacking, because we were big. We had a big store. It was the Flora building on Merrimack. It's like a historical building. It's actually 2 buildings. Upstairs, there was these offices now that are like apartments. And they've redone the inside of the building. It's been like an art gallery, a medical facility. It's went through a few things since we left. And get to the store in the morning, get your coffee. We had a little kitchen to the back, of the left side to the back. Get your coffee. The cats are all happy to see you. Feed the cats. This, that, and, and here comes the other antique. Like, what did you got? Is anything coming in? Like, yeah, we have like a dealer from Kentucky bringing in, because people just pull up with a truckload of stuff or call us before and pull up and be like, hey, we'd go out there and look. And you had to take like a Polaroid of them and, write down their info and their fingerprint. We couldn't just like buy off the street. It was like illegal. So we had to go through this. Some people were like, no, I don't want to do. I remember one guy pulled up and he had a truck and he had like, basically, I mean, I've never seen so much. All this vintage 70s Star Wars in the box. He'd bought some grandmother or something, like she bought it for her grandkids and she would just put it in the attic. Over the years, she had all this stuff. And I couldn't believe how much he had. And, but he wanted too much for it. We were going to buy it. We're like, well, huh? What? See, we got to resell this stuff. We're not like collectors. He didn't get that. But yeah, people would come all over. The people would come in. All the neighboring businesses would come in the store. At the time, we had beat cops. The cops would come in. You got to know people. Then we had regulars. We had people that came in every day to the store. Hey, you doing? They might buy us lunch. We might buy everybody lunch. It was really cool. I got to know all these people and what they collected, and but it was a lot. I worked 6 days a week, and I was also learning at the time. I had to like learn all this. Oh, well, see this and that. A lot to learn. Running around everywhere around St. Louis, the county, downtown. Like, we might go into like a downtown motel and buy out all their like vintage chairs in the lounge or something, like 100 of them. So it might take a few trips because we had like a box truck. Like, oh my God, that might take days. And we had a pretty good crew. Again, we had like Big Bill, Irish Tom. We had and then like this, the part timers that would show up, and these part timers would work with a multiple antique people. And down on Cherokee in St. Louis, there was like a lot of antique stores, but that was there was an antique row on Cherokee, but that was kind of like dying out by the time I got there. But a lot of fun, and I got to see a lot of stuff. And the strange thing is, some of the stuff that I saw back then that wasn't that worth that much now is worth a fortune. I remember I was looking at this art magazine, and there was these prints that I used to own. Not prints, but like there were watercolors. I just liked. Matter of fact, I hung 3 of them in my house, my apartment, and then I don't even know where they ended up. But years later, I was looking through an art mag, and I was like, oh my God. And then since he passed, I guess the artist passed, his prices went through the roof. They were like 90,000 a piece. I was like, I used to own 3 of them, but you don't know at the time. You don't know that like somebody's art is going to, pop off like that. You live and learn. But good times. I knew everybody, and off my off time, I hung out at the Venice Cafe, and the owner was a family friend, and we sold them a bunch of their stuff. It was like an art cafe. Sold them a bunch of stuff. Venice Cafe or Mekong upstairs. And my grandfather knew both of them. And so the owner of the Mekong, his son was about my age, so we became friendly. Like, again, we didn't hang out at each other's side. We were just hanging out when we were I was always either at the Venice Cafe or the Mekong. And if it wasn't popping off at the Venice Cafe, I'd go to the Mekong or go back and forth, running down Grand at the time. Grand was like, had music stores and clothing and bars and good food. And it was a great time to be there. I guess it was better before, because they were kind of complaining when I got there how it's went down. I thought, man, this is great. Like, we talk about there's so much stuff going on. Like, every day there's something going on. And of course, I had friends. I had bands. If they were I knew so many bands. If they were coming through St. Louis, I was like, "Hey, man, you can crash at my place." Matter of fact, I had about 5 to 6 cots I kept in a closet, and if they were in town or on tour, I would pull out the cots and they would sleep at my place for a couple of years. They would. Sometimes if they were going through town, they'd be like, "Hey, man, we're going down through Memphis, Tennessee. We're going to play some gigs. Come back up. You'll be gone for like 3 days. You want to go?" And I'm like, I asked for time off. My mom's like, "Yeah, just go," and I would. Didn't regret it because you're in a van with all these dudes. And first day is cool. By the third, you can't wait to get home. But yeah, good times. And yeah, the band. And I had my old people that I knew, even from Champaign, would come through. I'd always have to go see them, or they could stay at my place. I'd take them to the store and, give them a cool jacket or hats, old Dobbs hats, good times. I miss the store. I miss that. I miss all that thrifty kind of, again, the pawn shops, again, but they were full of great stuff and it was cheap. I mean, back then I could get, because my thing was guitars. I used to buy every 60s melody maker I could find because they were about 200, 250, like the double cutaway 60s from like 61 to whatever, 66. And I would, if I saw them, they were 200, 250, bam, snag it. And I'd do my own thing. One time I gold leaf one. I talked about this on another episode. And that ended up with, what was his name? Jay Farrar, maybe? He used to be in Uncle Tupelo. And then he got in another band. I sold that to him. I wonder if he still has that. But yeah, I would, man, I wish I'd have kept some of that gear. But I was flipping up, like sell that, buy this, do that. Because I was always looking for like a 50s Les Paul. And even back then they were expensive, not like they are now. But, or like a 50s Stratocasters, Telecasters. And they would come around, they'd call it. But man, I couldn't afford like 20 grand. Now they're like 80, 90, 100 grand. Telecasters and Strats. Les Pauls might be worth anywhere from 200 to 300,000, maybe even more. But I never did. I searched and searched, but but great times, great amps. Again, clothing, Olaf Cassini suits, and just I would dress vintage. I'd wear like cufflinks, and I looked like it was awesome. And then I'd either and my friends, they could get it for cheap, or sometimes I just give it to them. My mom was like, "Yeah, just take it. We get it out of here." We had so much of it. We had piles of clothing. And if it was old and worn, you really can't sell it. So yeah, it is. You can have it. Um, Archie Bunker jackets, and matter of fact, Scotty Beers, I think, still has his Archie Bunker jacket. But yeah, good times. I miss those times. I miss the store. I miss hitting all those other antique stores and pawn shops and seeing all the stuff. It's just like, I mean, that's I like that. I like seeing all this crazy shit. Yeah, good times. Yeah, please like, share, and subscribe. That's the best way to support the channel. Just like, share, subscribe, share it wherever, Instagram, Twitter, who knows. If you want to support the channel, information is in the description. For Cash App, my handle is charliegreerpodcast. And then for Zelle, it's my email. All that information's in the description. I'd appreciate it. And I love y'all. I do this every day. I'll be back tomorrow. Love y'all. Be blessed. Cheers.